learn better. Their academic achievement did improve when they were offered this. And I'm thinking, bro, when I was a kid, we had 30 minutes of recess every day. And that didn't include physical education. Sometimes we had physical education. Now, I grew up in a poor little county in western North Carolina, and we didn't have a physical education, quote unquote, physical education teacher for every school. So we got our our dance and our sport games and all that kind of stuff through that specific physical education teacher. About every third week he was at our school. But we had 30 minutes every day, minimum, that we went outside and played kickball, hung out on the jungle gym. Maybe it was just tag when you were little. There was a couple basketball hoops up, but and I could come in from that, get myself a drink of water, sit back down, and I felt like I could, at that point, have a little study, and it is a tragedy now that we're so focused on test scores that we think, and that's another thing that frustrates me, pisses me off with the word that came to mind, but frustrates me, I'll say, that I think education falls to the side, and the idea of knowledge for the sake of knowledge and thinking falls to the side because we're so geared toward, you got to pass this test, you got to pass this test, you got to pass this test, and maybe I'm stepping on y'all's toes. No, right? Okay, good. So, and there are those of us who are in this room old enough to recall when your job was to educate a child.
That's right.
Not to have them pass a test. Now you guys are going to face more difficult challenges because you're tasked with both of those things. You're tasked with both of those things. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. And I want to encourage you to be as creative as you can be in order to help that play out. Yeah, I can educate this young person, but I can also in that process give them all that they need to pass that test. And to be honest with you, I feel like movement and activity is one of the things that can help. I went to a conference this past weekend that I'll talk to you about a little, that talked about activity among small children and their capacity to solve problems. So let's jump into this. Maybe, possibly. Come on.
You have to click on the arrow.
Go all the way across.
There we go.
Okay, good.
According to Plato, who lived, move this thing down, just do this. Well, that's not gonna break anything if I do that? That might exit the whole computer.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, according to Plato, who lived, a few hundred years before Christ, in order for man to succeed, God's provided him with two means, both education and physical activity. Not two separately, one for the soul and the other for the body, but the two together. Now, in 2012, I started looking at some of the literature. I just basically typed into Google Scholar physical activity or movement and education, and in 2012 was the first review article that I could find by Singh and Associates, looking at some physical activity and student academic achievement. Now, there's a positive correlation between that academic achievement and the amount of movement that a student was doing in a given week. The issue was that there weren't a lot of really high quality studies there, and most everything was focused on, is this kid also participating in a sport? Or is this kid specifically getting a physical education or physical activity class consistently? So we left out the idea of, well, this person may not be participating in a sport through their school, but they may be physically active otherwise. I have a daughter who plays volleyball right now for a club team, but in school she plays clarinet. And she's decided that she likes that clarinet well enough that she wants to try marching band once she gets to high school. And her volleyball, as she said, I'm never going to be good enough to get a college scholarship, but I still love to play. Okay, fantastic. We can split the difference there. Well, in those early studies, that she would not have been considered to be physically active. And yet, here we are 2 nights a week playing volleyball and every Saturday and this and that. So what we needed was a little bit broader spectrum as far as what we were looking at with physical activity. So in 2015, we started getting a little bit more of that specific and accurate evidence. An interventional study was done that indicated that third grade students who participated in physically active academic lessons, so on your feet and movement, let's be active as we learn, improve their academic achievement. And while there were some inconsistencies in that study, the big finding indicated that those third grade students were less capable of differentially controlling and allocating their attention than the older students who were also participating. They actually had some fifth graders as well. The problem they kind of ran into was that, again, these young people were participating in active lessons, but as a third grader, they didn't have quite the impulse control and the focus to get as much benefit as the fifth graders did. And now fifth grade, you're what, 10, 11 years old by that time. You know, you're coming along developmentally. That being said, at 10 and 11, the physical activity and the active lessons still showed positive signs as far as academic achievement was concerned. So, again, the big push was on the third graders, and this study, I think, was in the Netherlands. So, those third graders, and my daughter went to German school, actually. We lived in Germany for a couple of years, and I remember her saying, man, those boys are wild. And that was probably the case. That they were a little more hands-off with their parenting, particularly early on. And then around fourth grade, you're kind of, after fourth grade, they kind of distinguish which track you might go on as far as your education. At least that was my experience in Germany. And so, knowing a little bit about what I know culturally and looking at this, yeah, it's understandable. Again, a third grade boy, 8 or 9 years old, those impulse issues are still kind of there for us. Nonetheless, we're still honing in on how that kid learns. And active lessons are important for that young person to be able to both utilize his energy and connect some activity and the intellectual activity that he's participating in. Sorry about this lack of a space there. That leads me directly to this. A gentleman at UC Davis, Dr. Martin, honed in on something called the Makers Movement. And this Makers Movement highlights the idea of allowing a kid, any child, to use their creativity in the area, but particularly it's geared more towards science, technology, and math. But basically what they do with these young people is provide them with a bunch of stuff. Here's a bunch of stuff. Old bicycles, wood, blocks. Go out there and make something. Just go out there and make something. Doesn't matter. Here literally is a playground full of stuff. Go out there and figure some stuff out. You know, and if you do that to a kid, they're going to build a fort. I mean, you can almost guarantee that. You give a kid some blocks and some wood and a place to do it in, they're going to come up with a fort eventually. You provide old skateboards and bicycles and things like that, and they're going to come up with some kind of vehicle. You know, and that's what you challenge them to do. Go out there and just do something. Figure something out. Build something. It doesn't matter what it is. So they repurpose all this stuff, and the kids, their brains just go to work. Just go to work, and let's face it now, what better way for me to figure out an angle than to have to hook a couple pieces of wood together and build you know, the little shed roof for my little fort or whatever. Or the idea of, hey, I've got a wheel and I can engage this wheel to drive in this direction, and this wheel's going to go in that direction, and this is going to make something happen down here. Maybe I hook a pipe onto this thing. Well, again, you're looking toward a lot of engineering and technology kind of thinking, but that's just math. It's all just basic math and the creativity, as much as anything, was the important part. The creativity and the idea that you are building and making, and how important that is to a young person. Again, tapping into that curiosity.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is this like the early movement of STEM in a way?
Well, given that this is 2015, what it's STEM's been around longer than that.
Yeah.
Who asked that? It's probably the next logical step. And you're able to engage.
It's actually, I think, and you can correct me, but this is
No,
what
no.
is project-based learning, where they give the children a challenge.
Right.
And a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
And they challenge them to do
So,
something.
and to me, that's the next logical step of the STEM program. And forgive me if I'm wrong, I'm not an education guy, but my idea of STEM, I think about a lot of classroom learning and laboratory experiences, but I feel like, in my experience, that is very organized. Am I wrong there? Is STEM seems to be, in my experience, fairly organized. This seems less organized and more
Discovery, inquiry.
discovery and inquiry. Those are the words perfect that we're looking for here. Yes, ma'am.
Well, so correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's STEM anymore, it's STEAM. It's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So now they're starting to go more into the liberal arts side
And this
of it.
certainly would play into
Yes.
that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think this is the application of the knowledge that they learn. So often when we're preparing for tests, we stay in that knowledge-based realm. And give these facts for objective testing.
Right.
And your objective is to pass the test. This, you have your knowledge-based learning, what are you going to do with that knowledge? And other than take a test, and this is showing what
This
you
is
can
it.
actually do, the application
Exactly.
of
Yes.
that knowledge.
True.
Exactly. So this to me is, well, it's just a brilliant thing. It's just a brilliant thing that you allow students, heaven forbid, we allow them to actually go out and play and put those lessons into application.
And then we increase students having to do imagination, to imagine the
Right.
sport, to have some type of,
Sure,
along with
sure.
the creativity.
Well, and I've said numerous times, I think I had all the creativity beaten out of me by the time I,
Yep.
left
That's
about
fine. That's what I
about 8th
said.
or 9th grade.
Yep.
I was a reasonably decent little artist when I was a kid. I had several little, things chosen to go to the all county, art stuff when 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. But literally by the time I got to high school, it was kind of out the window for me. And I don't necessarily know why that was, except that I was a little bit too cool
That's right.
to do art, to be honest with you, because I was good at sports, and so I was too cool to do art. I felt like, that's kind of, I need to play sports and be, do well in math. That creativity wasn't fostered, I think, as much as it should have been. And there's another thing, is I had really, really, really good music and art teachers when I was in elementary school. And at the middle school level, I did not. There again, that was something that only came around. The poor lady was working herself to the bone, trying to hit 3 or 4 different middle schools, for crying out loud, and she had bad attitudes like mine that she had to deal with. I had to pull my hair out. Maybe I did at some point. Nonetheless, go ahead. You have a question? Somebody, there it is.
No, but and maybe this is something that people, I don't know how No Child Left Behind works in schools, because I was pre No Child Left
Right.
Behind. So like, I remember when I was going through school even, that the arts in general were not fostered at all. There was a very big emphasis on making sure that you are proficient in maths and sciences.
Yes.
And that was it, because you were not gonna get a job if you were highly into arts. And that was the that was the societal culture, that was the idea and attitude or surrounding the arts. Because I remember telling my mom I want to be an artist, and they looked at me like, you better go pick something else. Like,
You're not living to be the rest of your life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and then-
exactly.
and then-
I'll have to keep you up for the rest of your life.
But here's the thing, and it was shocking, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about here. I just had my daughter at Walmart a couple weeks ago, and Walmart was doing this little competition for the Lego Movie 2, where you build a vehicle to help Emmett and Wildstyle rescue their friends, and you get the grand prize is a trip for 4, all expenses paid trip to Legoland in Florida.
Oh,
I'm sitting here going,
that's
okay,
cool.
well, I don't really, oh my God, no, I'm not a very creative person anymore. Well, my daughter went right in there and boom, she not only built a vehicle, but she built a snow base, and she built a character, and she built, and it's crazy that how you can, a lot of people don't understand that the kids are very, very creative without assistance. They're
Yes.
just automatically. And I think the problem with generations like mine and previously is that there was no fostering of that creativity because it wasn't seen as useful. And now
Right.
we're in an age where
Right.
we kind of depend on that creativity now.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I have a friend who works for a company called Atlassian. You ever hear of that one? Atlassian, 2 dudes out of Australia created this company, and basically what they do is help computer systems, talk to one another. You're running, you're running Linux and you're running this and whatever. I can connect those two and help them talk to one another, and you've got this exchange of information, blah blah blah. And Brandon said, man, these guys, yeah, they're computer nerds, but they're artists more than anything because they can see how to make that happen. Unlike myself, I can write code, but code is very regimented, very set. These guys can think bigger than that, and they're probably 15 to 18 years mine and his junior. They're still creative. Maybe they didn't have all the creativity kind of bludgeoned out of them, if you will. This is what I wanted to talk to you about, and this makers movement and this new research from Dr. Coe at the University of Tennessee, it goes hand in hand. This is what I saw this weekend was at the American College of Sports Medicine's Southeast Conference. And Dr. Coe works in their kinesiology department at the University of Tennessee. But if I'm not mistaken, their kinesiology department is under their School of Education. And that's where most of them came out of. We have education, physical education, and then kinesiology, exercise science has grown out of the physical education realm. One of the young women she worked with an exercise physiologist and an education major. I think this young lady was, I don't know what you would call it, like preschool, kindergarten, early child development maybe. Talking about risky play. And granted, if I send you out with a hammer and a couple old bikes and some wrenches and stuff, that might be risky play. You could create something that you would fall off of and possibly injure yourself. And we have in our society tried to create almost no danger whatsoever for our young people. I don't want my kid to get hurt. I don't want my kid to be put at any risk. I don't want anybody to say anything mean or negative ever to my kid, and that's fine. I don't want my child to have their feelings hurt either. It's gonna happen. Is she gonna skin her knee?
Yep.
You betcha. And I'm gonna encourage her to be outside and playing, and she broke her wrist when we lived in Germany. Well, I hate that, but come on. When I was a kid, there was at least, and I went to a small school now, we had 7 counting kindergartens with about 25 students in each one. So, you're looking at less than 200 total students. And I bet you at any given time, 3 kids in the school had casts on their arm.
Yeah.
because we were playing, you know, and we weren't just playing at school, we were playing at home. This evidence they're looking at, though, seems to indicate that risky play, and what they did was in a preschool setting, create more of a forest type environment. Like they had a big open backyard, and the kids could go out there and climb on rocks. You know, she said at one point, the young lady who was giving the presentation said that one of the little boys propped up a 2x10 against the fence, and she said, you know, we're talking about a chain link fence that's probably 5 feet high. He propped it up there, and then walked up on it and was kind of, you know, doing this little thing, and like he was the captain of a ship or something. And all the teacher said was, hey, I just need you to be low enough that your waist is below the level of that fence. I don't need you to be so close to it. Basically, what that did was, if you fall, you're not going to hit that fence. You're just going to fall onto the ground. Not only are these kids clearly more active, and they actually provided them inside activities that were a little riskier. There was kind of a little obstacle course area in one of the classroom areas. Not only are they more active, which is what the exercise science major, the kinesiology major, was looking at, but the young lady who was child development major was, she was looking at their learning. And it appeared that when they were offered these risky type things, they figure out how not to get hurt. They figure out how to build and develop in a manner that, A, not only keeps them physically safe, but keeps them intellectually stimulated. They become problem solvers. They are growing and maturing even at 2, 3, and 4 years old quicker and better in problem solving areas than their peers who are kept in those more sterile, controlled environments. So the idea that not only do we need to get up and move, but holy mackerel, maybe that movement helps me become more academically inclined as I move forward, because I look at things immediately from a problem-solving perspective. You don't become that student, and you'll have these if you don't already have them, who just wants to know what's on the test. Just give me what I need to know to pass the next test, as opposed to, and I'm telling you, I'm in the PT department, and these are doctoral level students, and they are the same way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope, again, I'm not hurting anybody's feelings,
No.
but very often they are the same way, particularly in the classes I teach, which are more kind of fundamental level physiology, exercise physiology, nutrition. You know, these aren't the quote unquote core classes that I'm going to use as a physical therapist. So I just kind of want to know enough to pass the next test and pass this class, because this is a hoop I have to jump through. As one of the biomechanics teacher, he says, you know, just learn. We'll figure the whole test thing out. I just need you to learn as much information as you can for the sake of doing it, because eventually you will use it. You may not be able to see now how you'll use it, but you will. So just learn as much as you can. And that's what I want to say to my students sometimes, again, even at 25 and 26 years old at the doctoral level. Just learn for the sake of learning, can't you? Don't just ask me what's the next thing on the test. What next step do I have to take on this path? Think critically, look critically. And if we get to our children when they're young, maybe we can help them to do just that. Think critically, look critically, not just want to know what's next on the test, but why is it that way? Not just the what. What is it? What do I need to know? Well, okay, I understand that, but why? What's the next step in thinking? And that's what this, I hope, is getting at, is that these young people are actually learning to think, and that is probably the single most critical, not just memorize, but to think, the single most critical element of education in general. I'm glad that what I'm saying is getting nods over here rather than stern looks. So,
I have to say something, like, it's interesting because my daughter teaches on Fort Bragg in a project-based learning school.
Mhm.
And they go from this school from pre-K, K1 to second grade. And the comments they're getting is that these kids are wild. They just,
Right.
because they want them to be more structured in second grade, and they're used to, quote, running the show and thinking
Sure,
and doing their things.
sure.
And so it,
I mentioned that my family lived in Germany for a couple of years. I taught at an international school over there, and my daughter actually attended a German school. There was kind of a project school between a standardized German school and the Christian school that I worked for. And so they had an English-speaking teacher and a German-speaking teacher in every classroom. So, you know, by the time she was 10, my daughter was fluent in German. But when she first got to that school, and she spent third and fourth grade there, as I say, I remember her saying, man, those boys are wild. But it wasn't long before she was joining right in their wildness. And one of the things those little boys loved most at that school was just this pile of dirt. There was literally, it was just a pile of dirt. And it had been there long enough that there was kind of some grass growing up on it or whatever. And the pile of dirt was sat right at the top of the slightest little incline. And their favorite thing, and I've seen them do it, was to just run and take off. And if I can jump off the pile of dirt, because it's going downhill, man, I can fly. And so they did. And they loved it. And there was a jungle gym out there, and I don't know that jungle gym equipment's much available anymore. They were just able to get their energy out. But now when they walk back in that classroom, that German teacher, she laid down the law, and they could sit down and learn. One of my coaches at dear old Pisgah High School, as I said, I grew up way out in the far end of the state. Coach Goodwin, he was my basketball coach. He was a special education teacher, and I recall sitting in my second period biology class, and right toward the end of second period, almost every day, Coach Goodwin took the special education, because in those days, let's face it, particularly at the high school level, those with special needs, developmental needs, were rather sequestered. I don't know how mainstream things are at the high school level anymore. I'm not there. I'm ignorant of those types of things these days. But Coach Goodwin would walk by with his class. They were going to the gym because they'd been in class for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes or so, and it was time to get up and move. We lost focus, so he would take them to the gym or out to the football field, the practice field, up onto the track, and they would spend 20 or 30 minutes doing something active. Again, many of these folks needed the extra physical activity in order to hone their fine motor skills because they were lacking in those areas. And then he would bring them in, and they would do another hour and a half or so of good solid work. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this will be my last bit. I'll shut up.
No. What time we gotta leave? So we got plenty of time.
Okay, so
keep going.
And I keep going back to my daughter's school. So my daughter's teacher talks about how her class in particular has been the most rambunctious class that she's ever had. Well, plot twist, they don't have recess until 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So
Of course they're rambunctious.
am I right to kind of question why they're having recess so late and then complaining that the kids are so rambunctious throughout the day?
I don't think so.
Because they don't have recess like that until 2 o'clock, but throughout the day they'll have specials, they'll have music, art, technology, things like that.
Right.
But to actually get out and play, to actually get out and get on a jungle gym, get on the swings, run around, play tag, do all those things, they're not doing it until the afternoon when they're about to go home anyways.
Right.
So am I Am I crazy in my confusion, or?
I don't think so. I mean, again, ask your knowledgeable teachers. I think,
You don't know the whole thing, you may not know her scheduling, and I think I stay about late for the time.
right,
being.
right.
So
Well,
you know about the scheduling.
Yes.
How-
yeah.
They're in class the whole day until,
Well, and you guys know,
That time.
as adults,
You need to
about an hour and a half is as much as you can tolerate.
stimulate.
Go ahead.
Well, when did they stop doing it after lunch? Because when I was in elementary school, we would go to recess after lunch. And they go like the last 30 minutes of school.
so in her school, they go to lunch, and then they come right back and get back to learning. They don't even play. And I only know that because I volunteered for an entire day in that class. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. And I'm sitting here going,
They don't even have a morning break where they go to
no,
the bathroom or?
and nothing. They have, you can go to the bathroom, but you have to have a buddy.
Yeah.
Well,
And then you
that
come
makes
right back to
sense.
class.
Well, I remember,
Everybody.
again, small school, small town, we had a 15-minute break in the morning. Even when I had recess in the afternoon, we had a 15-minute break at about 9:30. And granted, we started school right on, 7:50 or whatever. But about between 9:30 and 10, from the time I was in kindergarten all the way up through about 4th grade, we had a 15-minute break. And I don't care how cold it was, we went outside, and there's another thing, and I see you laughing, there's another thing, when we were in Germany, that kid had boots and a jacket at school, you went outside every single day. I was just looking again at this conference at some research with college students, and this was out of Appalachian State, where it does get cold. And this young lady who's a graduate student was doing some research into physical activity in the outdoors, and how do we encourage people who say they like the outdoors to actually be physically active outdoors. She said, well, one of the things I'm running into is that it gets cold up there. And I'm like, I lived in Boone for 15 years, for crying out loud. I know how cold it gets in Boone. And I bundled my kids up and we went outside. Because Lord knows, I'm sick and tired of you climbing the walls. We're gonna put some clothes on and go out and be active outdoors. Well, these are 20, 22-year-old kids, young people, forgive me. Y'all are probably about that same age. If you say you like to be outside, and you say you like physical activity, why can't you merge those two? You didn't move to Boone without a coat, I promise. I promise. It is cold up there. But get outdoors and do the activity. Back to Coach Goodwin, he knew those students after an hour and a half of solid work needed a break. I needed a break. The only thing we got was 5 minutes to get from one class to the next. But again, as adults right now, you've got classes like this one that are about an hour and a half long. And you're done for. About an hour and a half, as long as you can hold anybody's attention. Why then do we think that we can send, how old is your daughter?
She's 8.
Why then do we think we can send an 8-year-old to school and say, all right, from 8 o'clock to noon, you are nothing but focused on learning activities. Now granted, like you said, they have the specials, they have, maybe change of curriculum, but not necessarily change of venue. All I'm saying, and I feel like I'm standing up here just complaining, get those kids up, help them be active. It does help engage them in learning. It helps.
What you're saying is so true, but the teachers are under such pressure now to complete with the testing. And if you have a 3rd grade student, every minute of the day is going to be on language arts for the morning and math, and they're not going to give you that time that you need to have, which is really needed, that you need to recess or to have play outside that you choose some things to do. So that's why the teachers are under such demands for getting students prepared for tests and getting all that they have no choices. Not that the teachers, I don't think, would believe that they need to have it, that they're under that kind of pressure where every minute of the day is devoted to the test and for the students to sit there until they cry and get frustrated and say a few ugly things and want to slap you upside the head. And I don't blame them, for that kind of thing, because you know yourselves, you're sitting in these chairs for any length of time, you have Heine Shore. So you can imagine if you're a young child and you want them to sit there for umpteen minutes and whatever, listen to you gaggle on about reading and math, who gives a care? And you need to get out there. So you've got to look at some kinds of things. The curriculum is certainly one part of that, but there are some other kinds of things that I think is going to hit the fan soon. And I pray so, especially for the young children. I give kudos. What's our baby's name over here? Emma. Give kudos to Emma. You folks don't even know Emma's over here.
Yeah.
She's a kindergartner. What, 5, 6,
She'll be 7.
7-year-old. She hasn't said a peep yet. She's been trained well.
Right, mom's doing something right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, but she's mesmerized in that little game thing on the computer. But she still needs to have some
Well,
activity.
it may just mean. Anybody know Schoolhouse Rock?
Yes.
The little songs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, a noun is a person, place, or thing, right?
Yeah.
All the little songs and stuff.
Yeah.
Man, maybe
Functions
maybe it
junction.
means getting
What's
up
your
and
function?
going through English rules in song form. Let's stand in a circle and let's sing about what our English things are. Let's stand in a circle and sing about our math rules. No, come on. Let's,
I'll tell you, way back when in 1990, I was tasked in the English department with developing a course for students who were accepted on probation, which is now our MAP program.
right.
And so every day I would go in, I'd say, I'm gonna give them all this new knowledge, and I would lecture away. And some of you heard my story before, Maureen has. And one day I looked out at my classes, who were mostly guys. I looked, and I looked, and they all looked like they were just dying, just absolutely dying. I said, get up out of your seats! Get up out of your seats! And they just said, Miss Harper, what are you doing?
You've lost your mind. What did you have for drinking at
And
lunch?
then I'm gonna tell you what, it was that moment though. I taught English 100 for 32 straight semesters. And I thank God every day for that opportunity because it made me a better teacher. Okay, because I had the opportunity to do it over and over and over again. So I got grammar down to movement. We would do commas. 1 comma, 2 comma, and 3. And we would do the comma salsa. I had these guys, most of the time they were football players, and we were up doing our comma line. 1 comma, 2 comma, and 3. And then we'd do little chants. No, not a never, or never a verb. So, no, not a never, or never a verb. And some of the folks in the English department at that time questioned me because I was 30 years old when I started working here in 1990. So, didn't have a doctorate degree and all that stuff, I was just wanting to teach English. And they would look at me like, oh my goodness, what's going on in there? But we were having fun and we were learning at the same time. Yeah, we had all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
And that
See
stuff,
how excited I get about
that
it?
stuff,
Yeah.
that stuff lasts
Yeah.
forever.
Yes, we do.
That stuff lasts forever. I can sing those little songs that we learned when I was in elementary school
That's right.
in my head to this day. And right, and my daughter, who's 16, she'll be 17 this summer.
Right.
She does the same thing, and she's very, very musical. That's the way she's always kind of learned things. And if she's struggling, she'll kind of create a little song about this information because that's how it processes for her.
You know, it's funny when you was talking about the physical activity. My daughter's learning Chinese at New Century School, and the way that they learn it is through Tai Chi, and she learns the words by emotion. And so when she gets caught up, she starts doing the motion like, okay, this is
Right.
this is that.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
And
And
it
those-
helps her.
Those students who learn that way, they may not be able to stand up, but she'll sit at her desk if she's having to take a test, and she'll be like, and she doesn't have to stand up to do it. Those young men you were working with, specifically young men, I'm sure, they could sit in their desk at the end of the semester and take that test and run through that little song, run through those motions, whatever. That stuff sticks with you forever. And so while you may be tasked with the idea of, okay, we don't have recess until after lunch, I don't have to sit still in my desk with these students for 4 solid hours. Again, that drives me nuts. That makes me crazy as either teacher or student. Make it interesting. I teach in the cadaver lab across campus. Y'all know we got dead bodies on this campus, right? 20 of them.
Yes.
Okay? Why do you think we do that? Because it puts what we see on that screen, what we've read in that book, to reality. It's active learning. And if I have to peel the skin away and look for that muscle, I'm going to know what that muscle is. If I have to peel the skin away, I mean, yesterday we were removing viscera, right? So we pulled out large and small intestines, liver,
Yippee, oh, yippee.
you know, the whole kit and caboodle. But man, if you have to look for the vasculature, you know, that celiac artery that comes out and splits off and then turns into your hepatic artery, and you've got renal arteries and all this kind of, you learn that stuff because you've seen it. You've been actively engaged with it. Actively engaged. I mean, I'm actively engaged when I'm learning Chinese or with actions. That will stick with that child forever if she continues with it a little bit. You don't have to just stand up in front and lecture. And I appreciate this class because I've got some feedback for crying out loud. So often I'm like, anybody?
I was gonna ask you,
Anybody at all? You know, it's terrible.
these are doctorate PT level students that are trying to just get by on a test.
Yeah.
But these are people who are supposed to treat you and diagnose
Well,
issues.
because the physiology is fundamental. The musculoskeletal class, they'll learn how to treat you.
But if they're
And
not
so that's
doing the
what-
concepts,
That's
how are
what
they
they
gonna
want to
diagnose
get
it?
to. Show me that musculoskeletal. Show me that musculoskeletal.
All that.
Okay.
Not all of them. Don't get me wrong. But there's some of them I'm just like,
Those are people who don't need to be PTs.
Really?
I'm just saying.
physical activity. This is where I am more knowledgeable.
Okay.
Obviously, heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States, and the lack of activity is probably the single greatest thing contributing to the number of heart disease issues we have. All of the things you want to do with your students academically are the same types of things you want to do with them physically, obviously. We know the benefits of regular physical activity and that it does help your blood pressure, all of your heart issues, your control of blood sugar, those kinds of things. This is the numbers of overweight and obese adults in our society up through 2010. The information is actually there. This is a slide I pulled from an old presentation. We're getting heavier and heavier and less healthy. The same types of things that we want to have with our students academically, the successes we want to have with them from a physical activity and movement perspective. Get up and move. Get up and move. Part of the reason that we continue to grow in weight is because we sit still
And
all
look
the
at
time.
that thing right there.
This poor gal couldn't even stand in line at Burger King long enough to get her burger. She had to pull up a chair.
That burger line, yeah,
10,000 steps a day is considered to be active. If you give a kid a pedometer and say, can you hit 10,000 for me today? I would almost guarantee they'll do it because they just want to. That's a challenge for them, you know. How about grown-ups? Well, maybe I'll... 10,000 steps is a lot, y'all. You got to be really active to get that in.
Yeah.
We spend too much time in front of screens.
True.
We live in a society designed for cars. Here again, when I lived in Europe, there were walking trails that you could walk and bike on all over the place. There was a little lady who lived across from me, and I only ever said, you know, hello, guten Tag to her. She was probably closing on 80, and 3 days a week, she hopped on her bicycle and rode the 5 kilometers to the next town to the grocery store. And she would come back with her little front basket full and her little 2 baskets full or whatever. Didn't matter if it took her all day. But the woman got a 6-mile bike ride in, you know, 3 times a week. She was still kicking. And like I said, she had to have been close to 80. There was also a small kind of fresh market in the little village that I lived in, and so you could get vegetables and that kind of thing right there. And so she just walked across the other side of, and unless she had to do quote unquote big grocery shopping, you know what I'm saying? She didn't have to ride, but she could go every day to the little market or whatever. want to teach your children academically? Again, the same types of things you want them to learn physically and academically. Self-efficacy. You're capable. You want that child to know that they are capable. That you are in charge of your outcome, which is what locus of control, right? Things may go against you sometimes, but you are capable of changing your outcomes. High self-efficacy enhances wellness. I would almost dare to say it's guaranteed that it would also enhance academic achievement if you believe you can. Critical thinking and the ability to overcome problems, and some of this kind of active learning seems to enhance that, are the types of things we want to get at both academically, by self-efficacy, as well as physically. Mastery of an experience contributes toward that. Vicarious experiences through role models. My big brother's, I mean, you know, all this time later, he's still my big brother, right? One of the smartest people I've ever been around. And I always thought, well, Bill can do it, I can too. Bill can do it, I can too. Now granted, I couldn't do all the things he could do because he was more physically gifted, right? And he could just stand under the goal and jump and dunk the ball, and I never got that far because he's also 5 inches taller than me. But anyway, he was smart and he worked hard. If he could do it, so could I. And that was, you know, the thing that was kind of put up in front of me. Verbal persuasions of one's capabilities. Find people who encourage you. You're going to be teachers. That's going to be your job, is to be encouragers, not just educators, but encouragers. Sadly enough, so many of our young people don't get that at home. They aren't getting the, you can do it, I promise you. I'll help you if I can. And at this point, my kids, particularly math skills, are well beyond my own. I'll help you if I can. But you can do it. You are smart. You are able. I know that you can achieve. Too many of our young people aren't getting that in their homes. So it might be up to you to be that kind word every day. You don't have to take every child in as your own. But encouraging words mean something. Yeah, and physiological cues experienced when challenged. As far as physical activity, you know, what's the thing that what's that physiological cue? Here again, I know my middle daughter, she will, not only does she kind of sing stuff, she has some tactile things that she does that help her remember, and you know, she will literally create that list associated, you know, and she moves her fingers in a different way for each list sometimes. What are the cues that help you to know, okay, I've got this, I've got this. And it might be that if you see that kid struggling and that, you know, just that coming along and you got this, you know, and God knows in our society you can't hardly touch anybody.
That's true.
Without them getting offended. At the same time, I'm a very touchy kind of person. I know y'all saw me right earlier with Dr. Hayward like that when she was, you know, we were right on. We were thinking in our, you can put your hand on somebody's shoulder and tell them good job, and that's not going to be misconstrued. And maybe them remembering that physical cue while they're under duress taking that test or whatever. Yeah, you know what? I remember when we were talking about this and the teacher came over and she looked over my shoulder and we talked about it. Now I remember that. Now I remember that. So there's some things you can do there. Again, what's that? Tapping into motivation. What's your motivation to get healthy? What's your motivation to achieve academically? Is it just to get out of high school? You know, I know a lot of young people, that was basically their motivation along. I just got to get out of this place. I just got to get out of this place. I've got to finish school. Well, okay, then what? Where are you going from here? And then again, your locus of control. Do you believe that you control your own destiny? As I said, there's too many young people out there who aren't getting necessarily what they need at home as far as the love and encouragement, that kind of thing. But one of my good friends from home, both his parents were horrible alcoholics growing up. That kid basically raised himself and his little sister. He makes really, really good money. He stayed at home, he stayed in our community, but he achieved. You know why? Because he believed, I can do, I will do. I am not going to be in this situation for the rest of my life. I refuse to be stuck here. I can do this. Help those people, help those young people you're working with, whether they're little kids or big kids, know you can do this. You control your destiny. Everybody's got some obstacles. Everybody's got some obstacles. But you can do this. You can achieve. There you go. I hope I haven't been too preachy. Questions, comments, complaints, or concerns? What's that? There's a comment in there somewhere.
It's referring back to that, the thinkers movement and like the risky play with cameras, and I wouldn't say I shelter my children, but in a way I shelter them, but then they surprise the hell out of me. I didn't think my 1-year-old would be able to climb up a ladder and go down the slide on his own. He can do it. Blew my mind. He's like, Mom, look, see that thing? I'm gonna climb it. I'm like, no. He's like, look, watch me, yes. And he went up.
The reason I'm getting on my phone right now is I was going to show you a picture if I can find it. My brother sent me.
But there's that safety concern, like, so that early childhood development major. This girl is, you probably gotta watch her heart rate. Just watch her heart rate during the day and see when the kids start doing crazy things and just, that's not what I'm thinking.
Right.
Well, I think
My brother has a grandbaby who's, there he is. There's a picture of it. He'll be 2 this May. And my brother lives in Fairbanks, Alaska, y'all. It's negative 20 there all the time right now. And he sent me a picture of baby Isaiah about 4 rungs up on a ladder in his snowsuit, y'all. He's in his little snowsuit, right? Kids are caving. Now, granted, Gammy's there with him, making sure it right. But even if he falls, trying out loud, the snow's this deep. He don't get hurt that bad,
I think part of what has happened is that, and I think our society has caused a lot of this because we're afraid to let our children go outside and play because of what can happen.
Sure.
Like, our street where I live for 40 years has been very quiet and very comfortable, and our kids ran the street. Now I'm a little uncomfortable because we have found out there's a sex offender on the end of the street. There's, and so you become a little more protective.
Yeah.
And
And
where
I
are
agree
you?
with you. I agree
And
with
that
you completely.
limits
Yeah.
what we let them do.
And our society has created a lot of that.
right. And our society is also, when you talk about risk takers, or is it risky?
The risky play.
Risky play. That, the children, I've got wounds on my body now that I will carry to my grave. But for kids, you've got to have on a helmet and all that. There were no such things as that. A bicycle helmet, you fell off the bicycle, you got off and you got back on. You scraped your knee. We used to pick up sand and rub it in the knee and keep it rolling and to stop the blood and keep it moving. You had to be just about dead to go to a doctor. What a doctor. Never. It was just a part of what children play. I've fallen off of everything you can possibly think of, and it's just. And now you have to have all this protective gear. And in Christmas time in my neighborhood, it is dead quiet. There are no children out there with bicycles because they already got that. No, I don't hear any horns, no music, no nothing. Everybody's in there glued to the tube doing whatever it is. And everybody in here has got one of these, what do you call it, a cell phone with you right now that's attached to you. I don't know where mine is. I think it's in the bottom of my pocketbook if it didn't charge, because you don't do any of the activities. Children don't play when they get home in the afternoons. They don't do that. I have not seen a child in my neighborhood climbing up a tree. I stayed in a tree. I lived in a tree. That's why I stayed up there and just sat up there, watched around and climbed every one I had. Until my mother said, this is not what young ladies do. You don't climb trees and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, we used to, do things. Children played. I asked the students some things about what kind of play they do. Do they do Red Rover? Do they jump rope? I don't see kids doing any of that anymore.